everybody, to our January 25th City Commission meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Before we get started into our normal process, I believe we're going to have our Zoom up and running here in a hot minute. We have Commissioner Walker and Commissioner
There they are.
There they are, joining us via Zoom. They have the extraordinary measures that we've been allowed by state law to allow them to do this. I'll leave it to them to share or not share what that might have been. So you guys can hear me okay? We're all good? All right. Okay, so Jennifer Cowan, will you please lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Let us begin this meeting by taking a brief moment of silence and reflection. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Jennifer. So we'll open up with our presentations. Our first presentation will be Teresa, who's going to introduce us to some new personnel at our Pinellas County Sheriff's North District Station for the city of Dunedin. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Vice Mayor, Commission, Teresa Smalling, Director of HR and Risk Management for the city, as well as the city's liaison to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. There have been some personnel changes recently in admin staff and a couple of CPOs at the Sheriff's Office, so I have the pleasure of introducing Captain Melvin Jackson, who is the North District Station Commander, to talk a little bit about those changes.
Welcome, Captain Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So as Teresa just mentioned, we've had some turnover in our leadership at the North District Station. Lieutenant Tim Kelly and Corporal Tom Goldberg have both been reassigned. Their replacements are Lieutenant Tom Montgomery and Corporal Dustin Weitrack. Unfortunately, the lieutenant couldn't make it tonight, but I do have the corporal here, and I just wanted to bring him up and introduce him to you all so that he's not an unfamiliar face. So the corporal and I actually, we go back a ways. We've worked in our field training unit together, and we've also served on our SWAT team. So I'll bring up Corporal Weitrack to tell you a little bit about himself.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Corporal Weitrack with the Sheriff's Office. It's been about 13 years I've been with them. I've been in a couple different components as a detective, TAC units, detective in burglary, and now here at CPO. So I'm happy to be here.
So you're going to be one of our community policing officers?
Correct, yes.
Oh, good.
So thank you guys for having me.
And are you going to be introducing yourself around to all the local businesses?
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to start attending some of the events. Since I just started, the first one I went to was the DCO breakfast.
Yep.
So it was very good.
Okay, very good. Any questions from anybody?
Did you win a door prize at the DCO?
I did not. Unfortunately, the lieutenant and myself, we did not win the prize. So, but I'll attend the next one.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you very much. Appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate you being in Dunedin. We look forward to getting to know you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, and then next on our agenda, I'd like to recognize Phyllis Gorshey, our library director, who is going to lead the way in recognition of our City of Dunedin Martin Luther King Jr. Essay Contest winners.
Thank you, Mayor. And I have with me Carrie Colicchio. She's the Assistant Library Director, so she is going to be helping me to pass out these wonderful certificates and gift cards to the winners of our Martin Luther King Jr. essay contest. I want to start by just thanking our Parks and Rec department. The Martin Luther King Jr. Unity Breakfast was amazing on Saturday, January 13th, and our essay winners read their essays at that breakfast. We also have the essays scanned and on our agenda so that if anybody would like to read them, they were amazing. But I do want to recognize all of our essay winners and call them up so that you can get to see them, meet them, and we can give them their certificate. So from Dunedin Highland Middle School, we have Sashib Gupta. If you want to come up. Amelia Lane from Dunedin Highland Middle School. Isabella Lemons from San Jose Elementary School. Dulce Rodriguez Escamilla from Dunedin High School. And Zoe Vetter from Dunedin High School. And I want to thank Principal Kiblinger. He is at every single event, so thank you for being here for our essay winners. And they definitely need some photo ops, I know. So thank you to all of you. Their essays were amazing.
Awesome. So come on up, we'll do pictures. All right, now we got to get the city picture there. Away from this, okay, great. Ready? I'm going to do this way too. Podium is we'll just stick with this one. All right, do parents want to come up and get some pictures? I mean, come right on up.
This is your paparazzi moment.
One last one. And thank you so much for the time, too.
Hey, and I just do thank you guys so much for participating in our event, but I just want to say that if you didn't have a chance to read these, go on our website and look at our agenda so that you can, because they were really impressive, no matter what age group it was. It was just so impressive. And let's give them a big round of applause again. Okay, guys, you can go. You're good. Thank you. And for you guys and your parents, you don't have to stick around. We will not feel that you're rude if you want to get up and leave. All right.
Yeah.
Super impressive, all of them.
They were.
And I've gotten to know all of, I recruited for library volunteers and Parks and Rec volunteers.
Awesome.
They're signed up.
Awesome. Very good. And I know that Commissioner Gow and Commissioner Walker were really impressed. They were both at the event as well. Okay.
But they're not in the picture. Too bad.
All right, so while we have our lovely library ladies, we will go on to our Love Your Library Month. I will turn that over to Vice Mayor Frady.
Stop. The city manager is making me laugh. Okay, Love Your Library Month, and we do love our library. 2024. Whereas libraries connect people, materials, and culture to build and sustain a diverse and vibrant community. And whereas in a world undergoing constant change, libraries provide enduring connections to the past and future of our communities, nations, and civilizations. And whereas the expansion of electronic networks linking libraries and their resources make possible better and more easily accessible information for library users around the world. And whereas libraries provide entry to important research about health, economics, housing, the environment, and countless other areas to support better living conditions and to help people lead longer, more productive, and fulfilling lives. And whereas the Dunedin Public Library offers story times, teen programming, and summer reading programs to encourage children to begin and continue habits of reading that will benefit their personal and professional lives. And whereas the Dunedin Public Library supports a competitive workforce with basic literacy programs, computers, small business, startup, job searching, and other resources to support businesses and economic development. And as if that's not enough, we're going to continue on. Whereas the Dunedin Public Library engages the people of Dunedin with unique services, such as a seed library, passport services, museum passes, homebound delivery, and so much more to enrich their lives and the life of our community. And whereas the Dunedin Public Library creates a welcoming environment for everyone to celebrate the joy of literacy, learning, creating, communicating, and cultural exchange. Now, therefore, I, Maureen Mo Franey, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Vice Mayor of Dunedin, Florida, and on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby proclaim February 2024 as Love Your Library Month in Dunedin, and encourage all residents to visit our library and thank our amazing library staff for their hard work and dedication in making the Dunedin Public Library a cultural destination in our city.
Yay. You don't have your library dress on today.
I know.
Well, thank you. We know that every day is Love Your Library Day, but I do want to thank, we have an amazing staff, and we have so many unique services. Just listening to that, please come in, and those watching and those here in the audience. The library is so much more than what you may have remembered it being, a quiet place and just books. And as you mentioned, our passport program is amazing. We are a passport acceptance facility. That is Carrie's baby. She is running that and doing a phenomenal job. All of our appointments are booked. It's awesome. So if you need a new passport, you can sign up to get an appointment for that. But we're celebrating the month, Love Your Library, with some of our favorite friends, the Friends of the Library. They're hosting their annual book sale. So I just wanted to make an announcement of that. It starts next week, Wednesday, January 31st is the member-only sale. But if you're not a member, you can join on the spot. Our book sale continues Thursday, February 1st through Saturday the 3rd, 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. And all of the funds raised come directly to the library and support programming for kids, teens, and adults. So it's a wonderful way to give back. Who doesn't need more stuff on their to-be-read pile? So stop by the library. And again, if you haven't been there in a while, please come and visit us. We've got lots going on. So thank you, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Oh,
Okay, Sue's on it.
yeah. All right. Thank you, ladies. All right, now we have, now's the time for citizen input. Anyone wishing to come forward and speaking to any item that is not already on the agenda, please feel free to do so. If there is something on the agenda you want to speak to, you'll be afforded the opportunity at that time. Seeing or hearing none? All right, it's action items, and gentlemen, I am changing the agenda order because we have one of our local matriarchs in the house, and we need to take care of her. So we are going to jump down to 2D. Huh?
2D.
Yes, 2D, which is the first reading of ordinance 24-05, historic landmark designation for 611 Loudon Avenue. Are you there with me, guys? Give me a thumbs up. Yes? Okay. All right. Jennifer, would you please read ordinance 24-05 by title only?
Ordinance 24-05, an ordinance of the City of Dunedin, Florida, designating certain real property located at 611 Loudon Avenue, Dunedin, Florida, 34698-7010, parcel number 34-28-15-20412-000-0070, with designated meets and bounds and totaling approximately .62 acres, and the residential structure thereon as a local historic landmark and providing for an effective date. That was Resolution 2405, read by title only.
I don't know when it's done until you do that.
I know,
It's
you caught
ordinance
me.
24-05.
Yeah, it's ordinance 2405.
Yes, not
Yes.
resolution.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Franny, Vice Mayor
Vice
Franny, and Commissioner Tornga. Thank you very much. I will turn this over to Francis for the staff report.
Yes, good evening. Frances Leong Sharp, Planner 2 for the City of Dunedin. And this evening, we have a presentation for the historic landmark designation for the property at 611 Loudon Avenue. This is also known as the People's Home. It is home to Frederick Thomas Peebles and Corinne de Garmendia Stevens. And as you can see that we do have a photo, a historic photo, I'm guessing it's an archival photo of the Peebles family that you see at the top. And then the bottom image is the present view of the home. And just to get everybody's bearings, it is located at that aerial where you see near the corner of Wilkie and Loudon. And based on the criteria for designation, we do have a several list of criteria for designation. And I just want to highlight the two significant people on this for this historical home. Frederick Thomas Peebles, as you see in the timeline, founded Kerr and Peebles, Dunedin's pioneer law firm, in 1925. And then on 1926, he was among the 35 charter members during the formation of the Dunedin Boat Club. And then 1927, he was appointed as judge of the municipal court. And then from 1929 through 1939, and then from 1946 through 1949, he was the city attorney for Dunedin. And then from 1938 through 1940, he was the vice president of Dunedin Golf Club. And then during World War II in 1942, he served as a U.S. Naval Reserve as lieutenant, senior grade, and received an honorable discharge as lieutenant commander in 1945. He was also one of the board of directors for the Bank of Dunedin in 1949. And last but not least, he had been involved with many development projects with a known developer, Sam Kellner, who, in small fact, the roads Spalding Street and Frederica Lane were named after Frederick and Corinne Peebles' kids. Excuse me. And then the other individual, Miss Corinne Peebles, we have an image there in the spirit of Gasparilla. It appears that she was Queen Rilla of Dunedin, and there's an image right there. In World War II in 1941, she was the chair of Dunedin's Red Cross Surgical Unit, rallying women to support national defense efforts. And during the war times as well, she also participated in night watches from the tower at Edgewater Park. And the other thing that she had done was former president, vice president, and member of Morton F. Plant Hospital Auxiliary and Foundation. And last but not least, she was the head of the Peebles Wallace Day School and Little Red Schoolhouse at the Bellevue, Biltmore. So a lot of historical and cultural significance for this home. And not only for the historical and cultural significance, but just looking at the architectural significance of the structure itself. The Peoples did purchase this home back in 1930, and it is of the style of colonial revival. And as evidence that you see the center gable front entry pediment support with columns right here, and then the symmetry of the building in itself. Unfortunately, we do not know who the builder and the architect of the structure, but regardless, based on the criteria, they do meet the criteria based on the architectural style and the age of the home. And just to walk you through the several images of the home based on the side elevations here, or side perspectives, the rear perspective of the home, as well as the accessory structures that are sitting on the property. And based upon that, the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee, or HPAC, did hold a public hearing on November 9th, 2023, and they did unanimously recommended approval for this historic landmark designation. Along with that, staff finds that the request is consistent with the criteria that were evaluated against, as well, along with HPAC's recommendation, staff recommends approval for this application. And we do have our matriarch of the
Yes,
city
I would like to
here.
see if she would like to come forward and share a little something with us. Pretty close.
Pretty close. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. I would first of all like to thank all of the work that you have done, Francis, in getting all of this together, and also Kevin Connell for getting it started, and most of all, Anne tried to pronounce Birkenberg for all of the
Brockneberg.
research, Bockenberg, thank you, for all of the research and extensive, amazing research she did on this. She found things, I didn't know she had that picture of my mother or me in my diapers in front of the house, or my father eating watermelon. That's how we spent many afternoons, you know, the big tub and the ice thing, but whatnot. But the research, I'm so pleased that the house will be intact upon my demise. It's something that one kind of worries about, but more important, I am so pleased that all the contributions that my mother and father made to this community are being recognized. My father was a very humble man. He was known as the honest, integrity businessman of Dunedin. He always wore a suit, was always very proper, and at his death, when Greg came up to help empty out his closet, he was shocked that he had golf clothes in there. You see, he only saw my father in, you know, very formal suits and type of things. My mother also volunteered for many things, including from this lot there. When the police department was here, she would help Chief Sheets get together the Christmas gifts for the needy children in the community. And she also would cook the hot dogs with Chief Sheets' wife at the Independence Day celebration down in the park, saving her one time. She caught on fire. The chief's wife
Oh, my
caught
God.
on fire. Mother was first aider. She just threw stuff at her, and she was fine. You know, they lived happily ever after. But I am absolutely thrilled that the house is being preserved, and even more thrilled, as I have said, that my parents are being recognized for their contributions.
Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody back there. I think I saw former Vice Mayor Deborah Kynes come in, one of our local historical gurus, and of course Kevin and Ann, who strongly support our historical research and preservation. And I see Vinny, our former director of the History Museum. Thank you for being here. Is that it?
Yes.
I'll open it up to the public if anybody wishes to speak to this item. I'm assuming that you all don't have any questions, but I'll go to comments. Vice Mayor Freeney, you were the maker of the motion.
No, I mean, I'm excited to be a part of this. Frederica, I've known you for a long time, and I do think it's great that your parents are being recognized too by this too, but good for you for wanting to preserve this amazing piece of history and memory of your parents as well. So I'm excited to be up here being able to approve it. Thank you.
Commissioner Twanga?
Sum it up in one word, excellent. I really appreciated not only seeing the house and knowing that the house was going to be recognized, but I liked the presentation that you made about your parents. That's fantastic. That's the history of our people that made Dunedin what it is. Thank you.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Frederica, for doing this. I will say that the Historical Preservation Advisory Committee and the work that they're doing is so important to the community of Dunedin. And I think that this is a perfect example of how the legacy, the cultural, and the historical aspects of our community gets remembered. Too many communities are letting this go by the wayside, and we have too unique and wonderful a community to let that happen in Dunedin. So thank you for all the hard work that went into this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gao?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Frederica, for bringing this forward. Tonight was just an example of it's not just the architectural significance of the structure, but it's the people who live there. And as Commissioner Walker had mentioned, it's just and Commissioner Twanga, it's the people that lived here and the lives they led and the influence and impact that they had on our community. Just one more opportunity to talk about that is something that is so short-sighted by those cities that don't recognize the historical significance of their communities. So it's a good night tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I could have said it any better than my colleagues. I'm just glad I knew this was, kind of a long time coming, and I'm glad we were able to accomplish it, and I'm glad about all the hard work that's gone into it. Thank you, Francis. All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mayor. Commissioner Gao?
Aye.
Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Commissioner Tornga?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Franey?
Aye.
Mayor Brzezowski?
Aye, and that motion passes unanimously. There will be a second reading, right?
Yes.
Yep. Second reading of ordinance 2405 will be held on February 22nd. And I believe that might be your mother's birthday, or was today your mother's birthday? The 22nd will be your mother's birthday. So that's awesome. So we hope to see you back. So congratulations. And you guys don't have to stick around. If you want to stay, you're more than welcome, but feel free to,
I recommend against it.
yeah, feel free to go.
Staying, yeah.
Thank you, guys. All right, now we're going to go back to the regular order of our agenda, which is the first reading of ordinance 2401 regarding our franchise utility agreement. Which one is this one? Is that the one you want to do the intro to? Okay, go ahead.
Ordinance 24-01, an ordinance of the City of Dunedin, Florida, amending Section 78-515 of Article 10, Chapter 78 of this City Code of Ordinances to provide that utility providers possessing a franchise from the city for use and occupation of city right-of-way shall not be subject to the annual general permit requirements set forth therein, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. That was ordinance 2401, read by title only.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Tornga, Vice Mayor Franey. Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer for opening.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I just want to give you a very brief overview of the two items regarding the electric utility that is under your consideration tonight at first reading. Ordinance 2401. Jennifer just read the title to that ordinance, and then the second one is Ordinance 2402. These are, as I said, related to the provision of electricity in the city of Dunedin, which is kind of a big deal, I think. So Just by way of background, first of all, you have an ordinance regarding the general permit requirements for utilities with a franchise agreement in Dunedin. And then the second is the electric utility franchise agreement itself. So the ordinance 2401 needs to go first, and then 2402 second. On December 20th of 2001, the City Commission entered into a non-exclusive electric utility franchise agreement with Florida Power Corporation for a 10-year term with a 10-year option for renewal. And then on July 12th of 2012, the City Commission approved a 10-year extension, approved that 10-year extension with Progress Energy under the same general provisions as the Ordinance 01-45 in 2001. So Progress then became Duke Energy of Florida. And in May of 2021, the City Commission authorized staff to work with Duke Energy Florida to draft a new franchise agreement by necessity, given the expiration of the previous one. And that is the item that you have before you today, 2402, Ordinance 2402. This ordinance prescribes the terms and conditions relative to use of public streets and public rights-of-way for the purpose of providing electricity service within the City of Dunedin. The City Commission authorized Vice Mayor Franey to represent the City Commission as a liaison during these negotiations, given her past with these types of agreements and negotiations as a staff member, actually, at that point. And also, our city's liaison is our Deputy City Manager, Jorge Quintas. And Jorge has been negotiating for a number of years, along with Vice Mayor Franey, with Duke and with our other partners. We have Chris Rowe on as well from BMO. Who provided his legal advice on this agreement. And we have plenty of folks here today, so I'm going to ask Jorge to introduce them, and then we have a presentation for the City Commission questions, and then we can move on. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam City Manager.
Good evening,
Jorge.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Just as the City Manager indicated, this first item is Ordinance 2401, and I worked closely with Chris Rowe with BMO Tallahassee on the development of this. And it's essentially, the reason it's a companion item is it addresses an exclusion that applies to, or has to apply to, those entities that have a franchise agreement with the city. So it couldn't have been handled directly with the franchise agreement itself because it applies to more than just Duke Energy. For example, we also have a franchise agreement with Clearwater Gas. So that's why there was a need to draft up Ordinance 2401. And there's, if you flip through it, page 4 or 5 is essentially the revision that speaks to that. That exception which says this section 78-515 of the Code of Ordinances and the requirement to apply for and operate under an annual general permit shall not apply to utilities possessing a franchise from the city or which have entered into a franchise agreement with the city. So the reason this is a companion item, Ordinance 2401, is because, as I mentioned, it addresses the need to make that amendment to our Code of Ordinances before we proceed forward with the franchise agreement, which will be the next item, 2402. So with that, Chris, I'm trying to channel you as best I can, buddy. After spending 2.5 years at this, I think I'm a frustrated attorney, but please clarify anything I may have done incorrectly there.
No, very good, Jorge. Thank you so much, and good evening, Mayor and City Commission. The only thing I would add to Jorge's summary is that the elimination of the requirement to apply for the annual general permit will apply not only to your electric provider, but any other utility provider operating under franchise. As of now, there is only one other, that's Clearwater Gas.
Okay. Any questions from our commission? Okay, and then Commissioner or Vice Mayor, when we get to the big one, I'll give you an opportunity to speak to your experience being our liaison.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Okay, anybody from the public wish to come forward and speak to this item? All right, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any final comments from anybody? Commissioner Tornga, final comments on this particular thing?
No, I believe this is administrative as much as anything could be set up for the next point, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there will be a second reading on February 22nd.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, my takeaway from this is, again, the franchise agreement is stricter, So we don't need to have this, and so they're conflicting, so.
Okay. Anything from you, Rob or Jeff? No?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I don't have anything either. So roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Commissioner Gao,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Franey,
Aye.
Commissioner Tornga,
Aye.
Mayor Bajowski.
Aye, and that motion passes unanimously. There will be a second reading of ordinance 24-01 on February 22nd. So now we'll move on to the big one, the first reading of ordinance 2402. I'll let you read that.
Okay. Ordinance 2402, an ordinance granting to Duke Energy Florida LLC, doing business as Duke Energy, an electric utility right-of-way utilization franchise, prescribing the terms and conditions related to the occupancy of municipal streets and right-of-way in the city of Dunedin, Florida, for the purpose of providing electric service, providing for severability of provisions, and providing an effective date. That was ordinance 2402, read by title only.
Thank you. Man, you're just not on your game tonight, girl.
You know.
Okay. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor Franey and Commissioner Tornga. I'll let you do your presentation, and then I want to, before we go to questions or go out to the audience, I want to let Commissioner Franey speak also.
Perfect. Again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, so this is, as the city manager indicated, this is ordinance 2402, which is essentially the franchise agreement that is being proposed to be renewed with Duke Energy Florida. And so under past actions, as city manager indicated, we've had several franchise agreements in place previously. Ordinance 1232 was adopted back in July of 2012. That was with then Florida Power Corp, at the time doing business as Progress Energy. And that was a 10-year agreement with an option to renew for an additional 10 years. So that was a 20-year agreement. Prior to that, there was ordinance 0145, and that was adopted in December of 2001, again with Florida Power Corporation. And that was, again, a 10-year with a 10-year extension, so another 20-year agreement that was in place. Most recently, Duke Energy came before the commission during a workshop presentation in February of 2022 and provided a status update regarding past, current, and planned improvements to their electrical system infrastructure. There were concerns that were raised by the city and the commission as we entered into the negotiations associated with this franchise agreement. So along those lines, city manager kind of stole my thunder a little bit, so I'm going to probably repeat a couple things. But as she indicated back in May of 2021, the staff began coordinating with the vice mayor, who had been requested to be the board's liaison representative, along with staff, to enter into negotiations with Duke Energy to review in detail some concerns and receive documentation and assurances on how past deficiencies had been and were being addressed. An update was provided during that workshop in February of 2022, summarizing their efforts to address their grid and system reliability. Subsequent to that, the city also entered into a clean energy connection program agreement with Duke to subscribe to 2,960 kilowatts worth of power. And Duke, if I'm not mistaken, by the end of 2024, will have 10 of those solar farm sites throughout the state under their purview, and the expectation is that about 40% of the city's power will be produced through that solar clean energy agreement as a result of us entering into that agreement with Duke Energy. That helps, obviously, to be in alignment with our Ready for 100 goals for renewable energy in 2035 for internal city operations, and a citywide goal of 2050. There's a memorandum of understanding that's tied to the franchise agreement that will run with the same term as the proposed franchise agreement that iterates Duke Energy's goals along those lines, and they seem to be rather aligned as far as timing and similar goals. So as the city manager mentioned, we've been at this for quite some time. We've been negotiating the terms of the franchise renewal agreement for over 2 years. Actually, the prior agreement has since expired, and we've been working in good faith as is required by that agreement to bring us to this point where we will recommend the current 2402 ordinance for the franchise renewal. You will notice in your packet under the budget impact that the franchise amount that would be collected is equal to 6% of Duke Energy's base revenue. And I did work with Les Tyler in finance, and over the last 2 years, over 2022 and 2023, that has been approximately $2.872 million collected yearly as a result of that agreement and that franchise fee collection that Duke does on behalf of the city. So as I mentioned previously, this proposed ordinance renewal, the term is a 10-year term, and it may be renewed for up to 2 consecutive 5 years. That's a deviation from prior, where it was a 10-year term initially with a 10-year renewal. This one is a 10-year with 2 5-year options to renew moving forward. Concurrent with, as I mentioned, concurrent with the negotiations associated with the franchise agreement, staff's been working with Duke in order to develop a memorandum of understanding, providing a strategy and a framework so that we can have a cooperation and collaboration that focuses on those common sustainability and resiliency targets that we want to see occur as a result of the agreement. The duration, as I had mentioned earlier, for the memorandum of understanding is going to coincide with the franchise agreement, and it is scheduled to be executed following the second reading of the franchise ordinance, which will also be on February 22nd. So as I mentioned tonight, we have several Duke representatives here that will be providing an update to the prior Duke Energy agreement that was brought before the commission, as I mentioned, during the February 22 workshop presentation. I'll introduce some of those, and I don't know, sequence if you want them to. They have a brief PowerPoint presentation. We can do that before or after Vice Mayor Franey comments, but those representatives that are here on behalf of Duke this evening are Chris Tiedig. He's the Director of Government and Community Relations and Public Policy. Jeff Baker is sitting next to him. He's the Government and Community Relations Manager, and as well as Kimberly Graves behind me. We've got Mike Malley. He's our account executive. Mike and I are on some speed dial to each other. He's not
That's
yet,
like Jeff and I.
Yeah, he's not yet blocked me, so that's good. We've got Shannon Haggard, Manager of Outdoor Lighting, and Chris Glenny, Area Operations, I believe. I'm missing somebody, but I'll let Chris and Jeff introduce them, but I don't know what sequence if you want them to run. It's, I think, a 9-slide PowerPoint, or if you want Vice Mayor Franey to go on.
I'd like Vice Mayor.
Okay.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Talk a little bit about what your experience is.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned everyone out here. I'm going to just highlight, obviously, Jorge and Chris from our side, and Chris and Jeff on the Duke side. And, of course, Mike's always my hero, so I got to say something about him. He's Johnny on the spot. And I'm going to give a shout-out because when we had the tornado at Honeymoon Mobile Home Park, and there was one of the people whose home was shut down, mobile home, and it looked like they were going to have to spend the weekend with no electric. But between our people stepping up and Mike stepping up, I forget how it all kind of happened, but it happened. It happened that night, and they had electric, and it was great. So, and it meant a lot to an already devastated situation. So I'll say that. So as I remember being doing the liaison role, I think it was the mayor voluntold me, and I'm not sure I stepped up and volunteered.
No, I did. I told him.
Yeah, she did. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Welcome to my world.
My focus as liaison, and I kind of laid out a few things so I could really pull it together. My focus on behalf of the commission and our residents, more importantly, was first and foremost reliability. So at the end of the day, it's about that you have reliable electric when you want it. It's not going out, especially when you have a lot of people working at home now. Reliable during storms, et cetera. The report that you had in your packets, and again, I couldn't remember, I thought it was 2 years ago that they did the presentation on the report. I'm proud of this report. It was brutal to get to, right? Because 2 years ago when we started out, it was wanting a user-friendly document. It was intended to be readable, organized summary of what Duke is doing specifically to improve reliability of electrical system for Dunedin residents. And prior to that time, it was always kind of more massive numbers, bigger regions, and so this really drills us down to kind of the impact of what's happening, I think, in our community, even though sometimes we're pieces of other areas. If you read your memorandum of understanding, it'll be updated annually, and we'll meet about it annually, because I think good service and keeping in sync with each other and communicating is part of the trick here. Some of the key areas you'll see in there are the feeder improvements, the improvements to Dunedin substation and other substations that impact Dunedin, addressing the chronic issues. And of course, we had a lot of chronic issues, and I know staff feels like a lot of those things have been resolved. Not that things are perfect by any stretch, but a lot of the huge chronic areas have been targeted and resolved. I know that some of the people that used to call me, I've called them, and they said, oh, hugely, hugely better. The library, which I know, library and the stadium, I called our library director today, and I said, tell me on 1 to 10, based on improvement of the electrical system, like, what is it? She said, it's not perfect, but she's probably 7 or 8. So that's pretty good. Now I tried to get to Sue about the air conditioning and how that's affected air conditioning. So again, some of that's still a work in progress, and you'll see that in the report. You'll see in the report about the self-healing smart grid technology, where I think if I'm getting this right, and you'll see it when they do the update, 84% of the city has that now, the feeders, with the rest to be done by 2027, I think. Pole inspections, replacement in the report, and they're going to talk about a little tonight, storm resiliency and improvement, so sustainability and responsiveness. So, first, hopefully it doesn't go out, but if it does, what's the responsiveness? Climate goals are a part of that. I'm sure Commissioner Gao may have some questions about that tonight. Street lighting, that was obviously a focus we've talked about up here. They're doing new decorative LED light fixtures, 270 poles in the downtown CRA area with the GFIs for lighting, i.e. holiday lighting, et cetera. So that's my passion. And of course, banner sets up, and I'm going to specifically say to the mayor, because this was her passion, about the famous planters. We talked about it extensively. But it wasn't recommended because of cost, because of the structural integrity of the poles, and just the maintenance of the flowers.
Oh, you can believe it was one of the
Okay,
only things
so-
I asked for.
I'm sorry, and I just thought I'd hit that head on, so, okay. But hey, I was just a liaison.
Not giving up.
I was just a liaison. Everybody can have at this, trust me, it's not me. And of course, the Dunedin substation, which, see, that wasn't all you asked for, because you wanted improvements to Dunedin substation.
Oh, yeah.
And aesthetically, they painted the...
Looks a lot better.
Yeah, privacy fence to the point they could, because of some other considerations, they couldn't totally close it off. New landscape and irrigation plants that they coordinated with our arborist. So all that. That being said, so I think that we wanted to be a little bit more involved in community things with us, because that's what businesses do, and I think they've stepped up in that regard. But again, I go back to...
And we're counting on you this year, too.
I know for me, but I pounded the drum that with all the things we have to talk about, the number one issue is the reliability and the sustainability and our climate goals. So I think, that's what our residents care most about. Although I do want you to tell us what drove the big increase in costs this past year. So I did ask them that prior to the meeting, just for people to understand. That's kind of all I have to say now. I do have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask about the franchise agreement in particular, but I would just say I was merely a liaison. The commission should have at it. I mean, whatever you feel are issues that maybe got addressed or didn't, feel absolutely ask the hard questions tonight.
Did you guys have
Yeah.
some things you wanted to say before we did questions?
They have
They have
a
a
presentation.
presentation.
Okay,
and you'll-
let's do that.
Some of that will repeat what I said, but
That's
you'll be
okay,
able to
let's
ask
do
stuff
that.
on that.
Yeah, I'll just start out by saying, my first note here was to thank the commission for encouraging Vice Mayor Franny to work directly with us, but then I heard that, you were voluntold by the mayor, so thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, well, we didn't have a choice.
Okay.
You know that.
Yes. But no, and seriously, I want to just thank Vice Mayor for her. She has worked diligently on behalf of all of you, and more importantly, the citizens, because she was, wanting to make sure that the agreement that we came to would benefit the city and would benefit the residents. So thank you for all that you have done towards that. This has been a journey, but I'm sure all of us expected it would be completed quicker than what it was completed. But for me, I feel like this has been a worthwhile journey because we've had so much conversation and we've got to know each other much better. I think our relationships are better than they have ever been. And so it's one of those things where it may have taken more time, but in the end, it was beneficial to all of us. So even though it didn't happen as quickly as we had hoped, everything was worked out the way it should have. Having a streamlined right-of-way use agreement, it benefits our customers. I mean, obviously, the services that we provide is beneficial is a requirement for all of our residents. And by having these agreements in place, it helps us do our work quicker and faster, and ultimately probably saves our customers money in the long run. So we certainly thank all of you for the time and effort that's been put in. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and we'll just go through an energy report update. It's a lot of the same information we covered in 2 years ago, but the good news is that it's even better today than what it was when we last spoke. So I'm certainly proud of that. And with Chris, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Any questions or comments before I start?
Nope.
All right. So again, this is an update to the more comprehensive report that was put together and presented back in 22. This can change year to year. So the contents you see up there, that's what we felt was important to cover for this meeting. But for next year, we can add some different things in there. But knowing that reliability will probably always be a core component of what we provide to you. So starting out with what I think is something that would be of great interest to the city is giving a comparison of how has the system held up during the past few major storms. So starting with Irma, where we certainly saw some challenges with a lot of outages, long durations for customers being out from a major storm.
That was not your finest hour.
Yes, we understand that. We've heard that a lot, and a lot of lessons learned have come out of that storm. And so we felt going into Ian and Adalia, we were able to implement a lot of those lessons learned. And by just looking at some of those data points there, you could really see, so an outage count, it could be a small outage of a few customers, or one outage could mean several hundred. But you could see there from the marked reduction in the number of outages, the number of customers there that are out, and then the shorter durations. That's really a product of that self-healing technology and a lot of the hardening that we've done. So in the last meeting from 2 years ago, we provided a video that really showed what the smart grid does.
Chris, can you describe the self-healing technology? Because I even think residents that, hear this would like to understand it.
Sure. So the self-healing technology is really when you could think about it as redirecting traffic. So if power running to a certain location to a residence gets interrupted by maybe a tree falling on it, the self-healing technology has smart devices on our equipment, so on our poles, wires, that can then sense that interruption, redirect power so it comes in from another direction, and what the customer experiences might just be a momentary interruption instead of maybe a long outage. And then also that information is relayed to our crews so they can go quickly and right to the spot. They don't have to go searching and patrolling the line up and down to try to find where that interruption occurred. They can go straight to it, identify what happened, and perform those repairs more quickly. So it provides a few benefits there. But it's hard for us to parse data by a city because our grid doesn't work like that. Our grid does not see municipal boundaries. So just being able to dissect this data down to, as best we could, down to the city really shows some differences and some improvement, even though there's no storm that's going to be apples to apples. We know that, but this is a pretty good picture. And then here is similar to kind of what we showed last time. So the different colors really just represent how different substations serve the city. So that's what those colors see there. And this is just kind of an overview of some of our major projects that have occurred in there. So feeder upgrades of where we've done some projects that have improved the load and the reliability on a few projects. So those are our major branch lines that come into the cities. Underground projects right here at City Hall. We worked with y'all to underground that line. That's one of those joint projects, and we could do more of those. The MOU can speak to this a little bit as well, where if the city wants to do an underground project, and that's not something that Duke already has as a planned project, there's a mechanism within our tariff where it's a shared cost. And it's almost like going in 50-50 because Duke is going to experience some benefits from reliability of going underground. That's definitely the most reliable source. So we're able to pass on those savings to the city. We did that with the City Hall project. And then a lot of the work was, again, going back to the self-healing projects that Vice Mayor Franey spoke to. We have a few more to go, but for the most part, we've got a lot of this technology already implemented. We expect to have the bulk of it done by 25 in the city. 2027, the goals really have just about everything statewide, but the work in the city is, for the most part, on the front end of that overall program. And the last one's not maybe such a visible project, but this is something, a lot of work goes on inside the fence of our substations where we replace and rebuild and improve a lot of the equipment that goes inside the substation. We did this at the Dunedin substation on San Christopher a few years ago. That was a very big project. The next one planned is at our Highland substation. It's not in the city limits, but the lines that come out of the substation come into the city and serve the city. So this will still see an improvement. So these are all very large capital investments that Duke is doing. And there's another one coming too where we'll have some more substation hardening projects that are really feeder hardening that are coming out of Dunedin sub. Once those projects get scoped out a little bit better, those are a great example of what the MOU does, where we'll take those projects and come to Jorge and city staff to say, here are some more major projects we're planning to do. They could be projects, one, that if we're doing overhead hardening, you may want us to underground instead, and we would go through that process, let you evaluate your options there. Or at the very least, you can see when we're doing a major project, make sure it doesn't conflict with any projects that the city might have planned. So either way, it provides us that proactive notification to you. And here are some pictures there of what we did there at the substation. So again, we did try at first to put the fence across the entire substation. That was a challenge at first, and then with other issues and incidents elsewhere in the state where we've had, I guess, well, just say substation break-ins and vandalism, it has become a serious issue for us. And having some visibility to be able to see partially into a substation is important to us to maintain that integrity. So while it's not a full fence along the front, we did really as best we could while maintaining that balance of having that integrity of the system. And to street lighting, so there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of coordination between Duke and the city on this, and we feel like we're really about to get started on a major on a major change out where we'll have now consistent looking decorative poles throughout the downtown area. And so we've landed in a very good place where these will be replaced with nice black concrete poles with common fixtures and those receptacles. The cost is slightly more, something that is, well, a good part of that is the receptacles. Another part is going from the, I would say, the less expensive fiberglass poles to the concrete poles is probably the other driver of the $2,000 cost increase. But all in all, there's a major savings without having to pay for that installation cost. So we're able to work with y'all to find a way where we didn't have to pass along that cost. And then our schedule there, we've proactively ordered some materials, and we look at having that completed by November.
And we worked closely with Parks and Recreation on that because we wanted to make sure that it was in advance of the special events season, absent any crisis that might occur during the hurricane season. But assuming everything works out, the plan was to have that in place in advance of the upcoming special event season.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that, Bob Arnsmith, with the polls, he was involved. And then also in Parks and Rec from the very beginning was involved in inventorying and planning and how this all would work. So.
And then next we have our EV charging. So our first pilot program has sunsetted, and that's where those 8 level 2 chargers that the city's taken over. And we have heard some of the frustration that y'all have had with our EV chargers, and now that you're moving on with your own program. We do want to do better on how we work towards the 2 fast chargers that are going to stay within the city. So we could talk about that more, obviously, but those 2 DC fast chargers, one there at the library and then at the parking garage, those are 2 expensive pieces of equipment, but that's part of our, I guess, second pilot program that's out there. And we look forward to maintaining a relationship with y'all, and hopefully we can do better and demonstrate that we can be responsive and give y'all what you need and give the users of those chargers what they expect to see. And then really, last slide, it just for the most part, this just shows the increase in how the EV chargers have taken off and the usage and the awareness. So hopefully now with the city taking over and adding these and more chargers out there, you'll see more increase. And hopefully this becomes a good, successful program for y'all. So I did want to make this a dog and pony slideshow, so hopefully that was short and sweet. If you have any questions about that, welcome to take them or.
Mayor, if I could, I failed to mention Chris Rowe's involvement in this. He has done quite a bit of heavy lifting along the way. He did an excellent job benchmarking to make sure that our franchise agreement was at least on par with any other recent agreements that Duke's entered into. So please feel free to ask Chris any questions. He's poured through this and helped me throughout the 2.5-year process quite a lot.
Thank you, Jorge. If I can get our Zoom back up.
Oh, you guys don't?
Yeah, it's not, I can't do that. All right, we're just going to open up for questions. All of my colleagues, today I'll start with you, Commissioner Tornga.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe you can just help me real quick. Jorge, maybe you can help me real quick. The numbers on the chargers here, these chargers that we have at the new City Hall, where do they fit into this?
Thought Natalie was going to be here. They were installed as a part of this project. So those are the ones that are under the city's control and part of the rate structure that the commission recently reviewed and approved. So I'm not sure if that answers.
So those are in addition to what's listed here?
Yes, the ones he spoke about were the 4 that are at the old City Hall parking lot.
Those are 4 plus what we have here?
Yes, correct.
Because I keep getting asked that question by people, by residents and
that's correct.
Folks, so I just wanted a clarification for that. Thank you. We talked about the lighting poles down here in the city here. Do we have any other decorative poles within the city other than what's downtown? And does that need any attention?
But we do, we have some on Patricia as well.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how many, Commissioner, but we have them in other areas of the city as well.
So they will come in on the same program? No.
No, no.
I don't think it's part of this 270, but
No.
in future, as Chris mentioned, the MOU is kind of a living document, so we'll continue to update those going forward. But one of the advantages with going with this replacement cycle is, as you know, some of those older poles are fiberglass poles, and, you know, Shannon can certainly speak to this much better than I can, but, you know, a lot of times those poles get impacted by, say an accident and they get knocked over. The replacement cycle associated with those, just because they don't keep those on hand, those poles can be down for quite some time. Now, with this program where we're just going to go with the composite concrete poles that I believe you guys keep in stock, you know, the replacement of, if a pole were to be damaged because of an accident, those could be replaced much faster than we currently have with the fiberglass poles.
The feeder technology, well, we had quite an increase in electrical expenses last year. I believe it was 14% or some number like that. I think it's 14%. Will that affect, will this feeder technology affect that? Will that help to drive down some of that cost, or it seems like it could, but I don't know.
Well, that technology, that's really just built into our rates. What you saw for an increase really wasn't tied to or driven by smart technology. I mean, that would be maybe a very small impact, if any, measurable to what the customer experienced on their bill. The real experience that the customer would see is really in their level of service and reliability.
But specifically, Commissioner, to the question you're asking, last year, because there's many components of a electric utility bill, but the two primary ones are what we call base rate and what we call the fuel charge. Natural gas, if you looked at natural gas pricing last year, it skyrocketed with all the world events that was happening. So the increase that you saw last year was primary specifically to the natural gas price.
All the way up to $8 and now back down to $2.
Right, and then now, and that's the thing where, as I was sharing with Vice Mayor Freeney earlier, you know, your rates actually for the month of January, well, for this calendar year, we have the fuel.
Mayor, I think that's it for me for right now.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Just a couple clarifications on the actual franchise agreement. You know, obviously part of this is you have unrestricted ability within the right-of-ways. So I guess my question is, like, how do we just, you know, the agreement talks a lot about being careful with traffic, you know, being able to, you know, safe traffic flow, et cetera, but it really never talks about like visual blight. So when I say that, if you have unrestricted access to the right-of-way, what stops you from, okay, we have this brand-new city hall and you plop some ugly thing in front of it, or, you know, or the museum at downtown, or really any business that we put so much into, you know, into their business, wherever it is in the city, and you plop something down. A real-life experience that we had recently, and it wasn't you guys, it was another utility, but one of our neighborhoods in the Scottsdale area literally put, I bet, about almost $100,000 into improving their entranceway. And one of the utilities just put this big ugly box right in the middle of it. Now, we worked with them, and ultimately they were able to kind of help and make it right. But it really, you know, it was a high drama because of the money that they put. So I guess I'd ask you, because really the agreement doesn't specifically put any restrictions on you with that, how can we feel comfortable that we don't need to address that in some way here, or that that's not going to happen?
It's a good question. And one clause that we did add to the franchise that's found in, maybe probably not in the majority of them, but it is in others, is notification about significant projects. And anything that we would consider as a significant project of putting something like in front of I would say a major city asset, like anything around the new city hall, the library, stadium, things like that. Those are things that we would interpret and want to come to you. And that's, I think, what the beauty of the MOU is. It really brings us to the table to be sure we're talking to you about our projects and that we have a constant communication, two-way conversation about what's happening. So there's that clause in the franchise, I think it's section 9, that speaks to notification of significant projects.
Yeah.
But then also the MOU where we'll be talking at least on an annual basis, but it gives us opportunity to speak more often than that to let you know about other projects going on. And the other thing too is where our relationship now, I mean, quite honestly, the improvement in the relationship, what puts us in a position to want to talk to you about all these other things, say, hey, this is we're about to do this project, what do you think? So coming to the table more often, I think will be another benefit there.
Okay. And Chris, I guess I'd just ask you, as our attorney, like, you think it's strong enough? You think, I mean, and I agree, our relationship is better. I expect if that accidentally happened, like with the neighborhood, because I'm worried about the neighborhood too, because that wouldn't be something, it wouldn't be a significant project, but it was a very significant project to them. And that thing was plopped with signage all over it, and you know, and it took a while for it to be fixed, but they did make it right, so. So maybe, Chris, I just want to make sure that we're strong enough, or if there's any other wording that, between now and second reading. My second thing, I know that you guys use a certified arborist. So again, I just ask you, Chris, is, you know, do we need to say anything about certified arborist in the agreement, or just that's kind of covered in other ways?
So the agreement as written doesn't create an affirmative obligation on the part of the company to minimize visual blight during construction projects. However, it does have provisions regarding tree pruning and the procedures used. Any such pruning is required to basically comply with standards promulgated by I forget the full what the full acronym stands for, but it's ANSI A300. It's basically arbor tree pruning guidelines to preserve the beauty of the natural canopy and not haphazardly whack limbs off, et cetera. So there is an agreement, there is something in place in the franchise agreement which requires them to abide by that if they undertake tree pruning measures. But as far as taking additional or any sort of measures to minimize the visual blight that might otherwise accompany an improvement project, we don't have anything to that effect as of now.
Okay, I guess just something to think about between now and second reading, if there's anything stronger that's not all unreasonably restrictive to you guys either, I get it. But just, you know, that's what comes to mind. I mean, we put a lot of money, citizens put a lot of money into making Dunedin beautiful, so. And, you know, there's some real life experiences, again, nothing that comes to mind with you guys, so I'm not trying to create issues.
I think that's important, I agree.
Thank you, John. My other one, it really has to do with something that came up late in the game. Well, we talked about it early in the game, and we talked about it late in the game, and that's the first right of refusal, you know, if you were going to sell. And I've thought about this. I talked to some other experts about this, and I wonder if and I know you don't want to do that, and I get that that makes you guys crazy, I understand. And so can we have language that would say something like, you know, if there was going to be a merger or if Duke was going to be acquired, that basically the franchise agreement would basically be terminated. So the new place would at least have to come to us, and we'd have to set these same, you know, some new standards and create a relationship, and that pressure would be on them to do that. So I'd like that to be looked at between now and second reading, because I'd like to have something that makes me feel better that all of a sudden there's a new sheriff here and we have no control.
That would be a difficult thing to address right now, but that between this and the second reading, we'll talk to our legal folks and work with Chris and Jorge and see if where that conversation will take us.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Commissioner Gao, any questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have a few, and also just some comments. I know in part of your presentation, gentlemen, and thank you for being here tonight and going through this. You talked about, and Jorge, he addressed it as well, that the finest hour and some of the issues we had with Irma. And we acknowledge the improvements that we've made with Ian and Adelia. And I just at least wanted to acknowledge that while we don't have the opportunity to choose the storms that come here, compared to Irma, uh, Ian and Adelia were much smaller storms, and Ian went to the right of us, and so which is the weaker part of the storm, and Adelia stayed offshore 100 miles, and so I don't know that we really felt the an equivalent impact with Irma. So I just want some confidence from you all that you really have stepped up and have taken measures to make sure that the wires are clear and things of that nature. Because I don't want to see a graphic like that, and then all of a sudden we do have a big storm, and we do have stats closer to Irma than not. And so y'all do feel comfortable with your pruning and your maintenance that we won't have another Irma?
We do, so in areas where I would say more central to the state, that maybe are more comparable from Irma to the more recent storms, we saw a huge improvement from the lines that went through our storm protection plan hardening program. They performed fantastic in the last couple storms. So we saw a very good improvement. But again, it's so hard to find apples to apples on this. But we can at least say that where we've done our storm hardening program, they performed as we'd expected they would.
Okay. And undergrounding versus not undergrounding. Right, is it safe to assume that undergrounding is better than not undergrounding at this point?
Typically, you can say that. One way to describe it is there's good, better, best, and good is just our standard overhead system. Better is our overhead hardened system, and best is undergrounding. But there are some disadvantages with undergrounding. If a fault does occur, it's harder to find it, locate it, and repair it. If something is overhead, it's just easier to get to, see, identify, and repair. But you have fewer of those outages with underground system than overhead. But generally, you would say underground is more reliable than overhead.
Okay, and I noticed on that map that there's actually very little undergrounding in Dunedin, at least was shown on that map. Dunedin is a fairly old town, has been built out for a number of decades now, for the most part. How much of Dunedin is undergrounded at this point?
I don't have that. I have that information in the original report from 22, so I don't have that at my fingertips right now. So we did look at and measure by number of miles of what was overhead, what was underground. So I'd have to get that information back to you in between this meeting and the next one.
Okay. And you had mentioned planned undergrounding, and if there was something that wasn't planned, that the city doesn't even want, there'd be some sharing of cost type thing. And so what do you all look at when you look at whether something is planned, and if it's planned by you, who is footing the bill on that? And does that plan imply that at some point the entire city of Dunedin will be underground?
Well, go ahead.
Commissioner, to your question, there was a bill passed in 2021 by the Florida legislature that required all the utilities to create what's called the Storm Protection Plan. And what we have to do under that Storm Protection Plan is look at our entire system, and it's based on reliability data. That's what determines what Duke undergrounds, what we just harden, and what remains as is. So when Duke is actually undergrounding, that is at Duke's expense. So there is no cost sharing with the home or business owner. But we have the ability where we have jobs that, let's say, for example, that we're based on the reliability data of that system, that we would be doing overhead hardening if working with a city, a developer, a neighborhood, or whatever. If they wish to underground, we have the ability to cost share in those instances.
Okay. And the reason I just bring all this up is, right, that we're in the middle of discussing undergrounding for Skinner Boulevard, and their conversations have been, at what point is it cost prohibitive? Because, gentlemen, it's insanely expensive. And if it's something that in the long run is better protects the residents of our community, it makes it really hard. And so I guess, so when you look at, according to that 2021 and that storm protection plan, what do you look at in making that decision? Because it sounds like that any development going forward is undergrounded, but not necessarily any already existing established neighborhoods or communities. And so is there an opportunity for Duke to help out in that regard? Because you'll have new development, new cities that won't have to bear any of the costs, but you'll have cities like Dunedin that have to bear at least 50%, which is still exorbitant.
Well,
So how
in the
can you
case
help
of
us out?
most newer cities, and when I say newer cities, I'm talking about new developments within cities, and obviously Pinellas County is an outlier, so let's use the Lake Buena Vista area in Central Florida. Obviously, there's tremendous new development of sprawling neighborhoods happening. You know, Duke, that is not being underground at Duke expense. It's not being undergrounded at the city's expense. The developers of those homes typically pay for that undergrounding because obviously in today's world, if you're building a new subdivision, it is the expectation of buyers that they have underground utilities. So if a developer were to put up overhead utilities, they likely wouldn't sell as many homes. So that cost is being borne by that specific developer who's developing that subdivision.
But, you know, Commissioner Gao, if I could add on to your question, we do have a lot of older neighborhoods, as you know. I mean, you were just here for historical preservation. We have another one on the agenda after you, and I would just say that we also have especially a number of homes that have their power lines in their backyard. And that's where the major problems really happen. And then the major expense. So even if it were for those kind of neighborhoods, we're, you know, getting it out of there and having some kind of program to partner with these people, I think, you know, over time.
So part of our hardening program, a component of that is what we call lateral hardening underground. And one of the major things we do look at is we call it back lot lines.
Yeah.
And those are a huge problem for us. It's hard for us to access, and there are usually a lot of trees back there too. So those do have typically lower performing reliability scores. So we take a look at several metrics to determine how many outages are occurring on that line, what's the duration, things like that, based on certain events. And so we aggregate that data to develop this program to identify what are we going to underground, what are we going to harden overhead. And we do look at what is the cost difference, because really feeders, so those are the main lines that are going down roads, not the super tall concrete 100-foot tall poles, but
Is that rain?
It may be the air conditioning.
No, our air conditioning's not that loud.
Yes, it's rain. It's raining at my house, so yes.
It's not always cost effective for us to bury feeder lines, because those can be more expensive to bury. But the lateral lines that come off, we do look at doing a lot of undergrounding with those. And a lot of times those are the lines that are going to neighborhoods, whether it's back lot or front lot. But again, this is another feature that MOU where we would take a look at opportunities underground. And if you're hearing from your citizens, your residents of issues and concerns, and you want us to take a look at a certain area and just do some reliability data mining, we can do that and just give you the information of what we see, if that is a future candidate for Duke to underground. And if it's not, then maybe that's something we do the cost sharing through the tariff.
Well, part of the problem, though, is if you have those poles in the backyard, you got all the other utilities on them, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue. Isn't that what we ran into?
That's something that we've tried to address in the MOU, to see if Duke can help us with those negotiations. It is difficult because they're co-located on Duke's poles, and We ran into that on the City Hall project. They were
Yeah.
done, they were ready to remove their poles, and we had to wait for the other utilities to get off of it.
And I do get it. And I do get, you have to look at your data as to, it's got to benefit your overall maintenance costs as well as the outage that the folks are experiencing at the home. But then there's always just good community partner has to be considered into that because it improves the value of the neighborhood when they don't have poles in their backyard where their kids are playing, because people think differently about that now. I just put it out there. Okay, back to you, Commissioner Gall. Sorry, I jumped on your question.
Oh, it's okay, Mayor, and that's basically it. I just wanted to acknowledge that it's very expensive to underground, and by not undergrounding, given the situation, does put our neighborhoods at a greater risk for outages, or the concern over maintaining of those lines when they're overhead. But that's it. Back to you, Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Walker, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Actually, my questions have all been addressed through the price and the associated cost, as well as possibly a provision to address any sort of market consolidation in the utilities. So, no, I have no further questions.
Okay, then I'm going to open up to the public. Do we have anybody from the public wishing to speak to this item? Hearing none, I'm coming back to the commission. Making sure I'm going to the right person. I think it was Vice Mayor Franey.
Just final comments?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm supportive of this. I do want to thank Chris and Jeff and their team. This really did start 3 years ago, and it was a rough start. There was a lot of improvements that needed to be made, and I feel like we've come a long way, and our relationship is definitely, I feel good about it. I just feel like, there's just a trust that's been built, and that's a great thing. I would like you guys to consider those other two things if we can do that verbiage. And I know you want to make me 100%, well, you're not going to make me 100% happy, but as happy as I can be. That would be great to add that. But yeah, I'm supportive of this, and thanks to the whole team, and especially I certainly Chris and Jorge on our side, because they worked hard, and I know Jorge will be real happy when this is done. So.
Vice Mayor, if I could, you mentioned two things. I had one notation I took down that had to do about the sale or a merger. What was the
Yeah,
second
I can
item?
give you the verbiage, but it's just, it's the verbiage of, if there's a merger or, say, Duke is acquired, that the franchise agreement would be terminated.
Yeah, I had that
Yeah,
one.
you got
What
that.
was
So the other
second
one was any additional language for the visual blight
Okay,
potential,
visual
so.
Okay, Commissioner Tornger. Final comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the enthusiasm that you have met this with. It's been a long time, but we're seeing changes, and our residents appreciate that. It was very complicated to work through all of this in the agenda review with our folks spending a lot of time with us, understanding this, and I appreciate the work that you guys have done. I know they've mentioned that, so I want to thank you. And sometimes you're a target when we have the storms. Where are those guys? And of course, they are out there working in the storm. I appreciate your communication about a couple of the issues. One of them is on the solar side. That has to be always referenced in cost and certainly in the results that it brings us. And then the second part is complexity of going underground. It's as I've spoken with you before about that, Jeff, the concerns of having a community try to do it, and you've got to try to get everybody in the community to be involved in that. So it is complex, but again, I appreciate the enthusiasm. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Gao, final comments?
Just, gentlemen, thank you for doing this. Thank you to Commissioner Freeney for taking the lead as the liaison on trying to work through these agreements, because it's difficult and it's hard. and I get it. And electricity is expensive, and you're the guys that nobody talks about when they turn their lights on. It's when they try to turn them on, they don't come on, then all of a sudden Duke becomes the bad guy. And so it's hard, and you guys have hard jobs. So thank you for coming here tonight. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Walker.
Yeah, so I'm in favor of this, and just there's another optic that we need to just kind of bring into view here. Since I was elected to the commission a little over a year ago, one of the things I've noted is that you all are visible in our community. And, you are members of the community, and you know, I think that's an important aspect of being a good partner. So I greatly appreciate it. I know this is a very complex issue, and thank you to the staff, Vice Mayor Franny, and everybody that was involved with it.
Okay, I appreciate all the hard work, Jorge, you and your team, as well as our liaison, worked on this for a long time. There was a method to our madness when we appointed Vice Mayor Franny to this. She was a staff member here for a long time and had worked on a whole electrical analysis, electrical infrastructure analysis, and understands where all the bad spots were, and had a real institutional knowledge about Dunedin's electrical infrastructure. So that was the main reason. But the other reason was every time you guys came up here, she was here for 30 minutes questioning you, and we thought, well, why don't we just appoint her? She'll beat you up more than any of us. Let's put her off camera and let her beat you up a little more. So there was two methods to our madness, institutional knowledge and passion about the subject. So I think she did a really good job, and our team did as well. You know, we understand a negotiation is where everybody walks away unsatisfied, your side and our side. But I still will keep fighting for my flower pots on the light poles because everywhere else has them. Everybody. And, you know, we should have flowers on our sidewalks. So figure out a way that can be done without a structural engineer document just to hang some pots. Because I heard what the issue was. And that's your requirement, not ours. And we're talking about some little metal things with a little pot that you get for $3 at Home Depot. So I will tell you, I think a structural engineer or whatever it is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life for a light pole. And that sounds like a bunch of engineers in a room who, you know, talk about how to complicate things. So I'd like you guys to go back and rethink that. So if I had to ask for something at the next reading, it would be that, because I really don't think that that's necessary. And we don't have to hang them all year long.
It's all fun and games till they start flying in a storm. But
Oh, my God. So you're the one that's got the problem.
No, I'm just, you know.
It's you that has the problem. Okay, well then, how come every street on Toronto has beautiful, you know, hanging plants on their light
You
poles?
have to look at it, that's all.
If I see another hanging thing, I'm gonna send every picture to you.
Okay.
Because you're an engineer too, so you're just as bad.
Love you too, Mayor.
Y'all talk about this. This is important stuff.
Absolutely.
No, I'm not teasing, but it's certainly not as important to have our infrastructure. I don't want to make light of what has been accomplished here. It's really important as to what's been accomplished. And I do think that our relationship with Duke has come a long way.
And with that, I would kind of like to address what Commissioner Gow asked about, comparing the storms. Just to be very frank, Commissioner Gow, Irma was not our finest moment at all. I think we can all, I think all Duke employees are at the point now where we can all agree that there were many mistakes made in that storm. So, again, if we were to have, again, not that the exact same storm would ever happen again, but if we were to have that exact same storm tomorrow, I feel very confident that the results would be different, even if we started with the same numbers that we had up there in terms of the exact same number of outages. We've just, I'll use I can't recall the name of the storm that hit Mexico Beach, for example. That was, a Cat 5 hurricane that did.
Michael?
Michael, that just decimated that area, and, we are the utility provider there as well. And our response at that storm was exceptional. So I think a lot of the problems of the past were just truly operational issues that we had, and technology issues, because that was when we significantly started investing in smart grid technology and things of that nature. So even if we had the same storm, I feel confident that the results would be much different today.
Well, I think we can all really appreciate that, and it gives us a lot of comfort to be able to say that to our residents, and that really is the most important thing. And, that's kind of how you and I met.
Absolutely.
On Facebook, in front of the world. Oh, yeah, it was ugly.
I had to tell him where to go.
But, I was out of electricity for 7 days, and then I had everybody and their brother who was out of electricity, blaming me. So, yeah,
We understand that you get the brunt of citizen complaints.
we all do. We all do, but.
I had to let the mayor and the city manager know where to go to dinner in Tallahassee. So.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Commissioner Gao,
Aye.
Commissioner Torga, Vice Mayor Franey. Aye. Mayor Boszowski.
Aye, and that motion passes unanimously. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Chris.
And Chris, thank you, Chris.
Mayor, may I?
Yes,
For
please.
one moment, please.
Sure.
Thank you. So we actually started these negotiations under Doug Hutchins.
Yes.
When he was the
I was
deputy
gonna
city
say.
manager. Yeah. And I just want to thank Jorge for all of his hard work. Everybody sitting here, but Jorge especially, because having started under the previous deputy city manager, he inherited it. He was the obvious choice to be our staff liaison. But he also worked this negotiation through a time when he was the city engineer, when he was the director of utilities and the city engineer and the deputy city manager and the project manager for City Hall and all those things. And so, yeah, I'm just very grateful to Jorge for hanging in there and the great work that he did. And I'm very pleased that he and Vice Mayor still love each other, and, that things are still good.
She asked her. She was one of my
Good
references.
there.
Give me those last two items, Jorge, those last two items.
Yeah, but yeah, just thank you, Mayor, for that moment, but just thanks to all of you. And I like the opening that we all got to know each other better and advance our partnership. But again, especially many thanks to Jorge for doing a great job. Thank you.
And
Jorge.
I've seen the inside of Chris's garage/office in Zoom meetings so many times. I think I could probably pick out where he stores different things behind him. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, and I just have to announce there is a second reading of ordinance 2402, which will be heard on February 22nd, which I imagine you all will be back for.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have the first reading of ordinance 2404, historically unmarked designation of 501 New York Avenue. Staff is asking that to be postponed until February 8th.
So Mayor, to that end, my understanding is the remarkable Sylvia Earle will be here for the
Okay.
first reading of that ordinance. So, yeah, we're
great.
excited.
Pretty cool. All right, can I have a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor Franey, Commissioner Torga. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then we have our proposed agenda for February 8th, which has much of nothing on it.
Yeah.
So, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Franey, or Vice Mayor Franey, can I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gao. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
May we consider the fact of what's on that? Is there some other option that we could have? I'm just bringing it up for the good of the order.
Yeah, I think it's because Tuesday is pretty heavy.
I meant,
Another
we
option.
discussed that before
Right.
in our agenda review, but I just thought I'd bring it up to see if anybody had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, another option in terms of putting something from Tuesday on to Thursday.
No, I mean, I think we
I mean, I'm
adjusted
not
this
sure.
for Sylvia Earle,
We did, yeah.
you know? I'm fine with it the way it is, but whatever you guys want to do.
Just bringing it up. If there's no other input, I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean, but I'm not sure the best way to go since Sylvia Earle's coming. And-
Yeah. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Anything for the good of the order? I will say that I did, Jennifer and Mo, I sent you the final 3 date options for the Toronto trip.
Oh, okay.
They're by email,
Okay.
and I
I'll
gave you
look.
what the conflicts are, so that none of them are very good.
Okay,
But
okay.
there are choices, and I do want to say that the reason,
None of them are good options, or none of them?
well, there's only one that's really halfway decent, and
Okay.
but it's not going to be good for everybody, is what I'm saying.
Okay, gotcha.
But I will say that all of these years that I've gotten annoyed by this process, I have now understood why. Nobody's ever explained it to me why it's so difficult to get these dates, so I do want to share it with my colleagues for future posterity. The management team here wants to be on the trip with us there. And if they have a home game here during the summer, they cannot be on the trip to go. So they have to, it's not just picking a date. They have to pick a date when they can also be there. And that's what's causing all of the date conflicts.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's why it has, but nobody's ever explained that to me, and I'm always mad at Shelby. Would you just give me a date?
Interesting.
So, anyway, once we get an option, we'll certainly let the entire commission know. I'm letting Jennifer know because there's a scheduling thing, and I'm letting Commissioner Franny know because she's the liaison with the Jays, and she should know right now, but until we get it picked, we'll let you all know. All right, thank you all for being here. Have a good night. We are adjourned. Bye, gentlemen.